his important message. So I think no matter what field you're in, if you look at presentation Zen and follow the approach, keeping in mind, the restraint, design, simplicity, all of that, I think you'll be prepared to make really, really incredibly great presentations. Now, what is a slidegement? Well, that's a slide and document. You put it together and you get a slidegement. And this happens when people try to kill two birds with one stone. The only problem is no birds are killed, which is great if, you're a bird, but for everyone else, we get a document that sort of looks like this, where there's not enough information to be a useful document, and there's too much information, certainly too much text, to be a visual. And this is what happens when we don't exercise restraint. The opposite of restraint to me is actually laziness, right? We just don't take the time to bother with this idea of paring down and focusing on what's important. So one piece of advice then is to remember in the preparation stage that you can have a proper handout and that you should make a proper handout. And if you do that, in the handout, that's where more of the details can go. And it can be spelled out, it can be written out in a very logical fashion. And if you do that up front, then you won't feel compelled to cram your slides with lots of information that you don't actually need, but you sometimes put it in there, well, just in case, right? Someone says, well, what about this piece of data? Well, if it's in the handout, then you won't feel compelled to do that. So you might be saying, what's Zen got to do with it? I actually have lived in Japan for almost 20 years, except for times when I was in graduate school or when I worked for Apple. I've been living in around Tokyo or Osaka or even in the Japanese countryside. So Zen, which was born in India and then moved to China and grew up in China, but really took root and flourished in Japan. And it's at the heart of Japanese culture. And we don't verbalize Zen, of course, on the streets of Japan, but it is there. And for me, it's been a very sort of profound experience studying the Zen arts. And I've seen that you can apply the principles and the principles of Zen and Zen practice to many aspects of life, including work and including presentations. There are many concepts in Zen, but for me it's all about simplicity. And simplicity, which sort of has gotten a bad rap, certainly in the United States and in the Western world in general, simplicity is not about dumbing things down or leaving out what's important or sort of, trying to skirt an issue, for example. Simplicity is actually quite profound and very powerful, and it isn't even easy to do. But by the end of this video, and if you read the book, I think you'll have some concepts that will help you, leverage this idea of simplicity and bringing out what's important and leaving the non-important behind. So simplicity isn't necessarily simple to do, but for our audience, for our end users, it will be, extremely powerful to do. The first step in the preparation process is to identify the core, to identify, the real essential thrust of the presentation. And one way to do that, really the first thing, is to first clear your mind so that you can identify what's important. And this brings up something that I learned from the world of Zen, which is called the beginner's mind, or sometimes it's called the child's mind. And what that means is, we are all experts, of course, in our fields, but if you adopt the beginner's mind or the child's mind, there are many possibilities to a problem. As experts, we kind of get locked into the traditional way of thinking about things. And we know of myriad of ways, of many possibilities of why this can't be done or why that hasn't been done. So in the beginner's mind, they say, there are many possibilities. But in the expert's mind, there are few. So although we are experts to some degree or another, if we just sort of put that aside,